I was 29 when I met Lena, and from the very first moment she walked into my life, everything felt almost unreal. She was warm, confident, the kind of woman who looked at you like she already knew your story and somehow wanted to be part of it. Our connection was instant, effortless, almost too perfect to question. For months, she became the center of my world, showing up unexpectedly with takeout, planning weekend trips, talking about the future with a certainty that made me believe she saw one with me. But slowly, subtle cracks started to show. Small comments about her visa expiring. Nervous jokes about how marriage solves everything. Questions about how quickly people usually get married in the US. At the time, I brushed it off as stress or insecurity. I had no reason to think she was hiding something darker. I didn't know that behind every smile, every kiss, every whispered promise, there was a plan already waiting to unfold. I had the ring in my pocket the night everything unraveled, a small velvet box that suddenly felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. I remember walking toward the house with this goofy, nervous smile, rehearsing what I was going to say when I got on one knee. But as soon as I stepped inside, I heard Lena's voice. Low, urgent, speaking in rapid Ukrainian, a tone I had never heard from her. At first, I thought she was upset. Maybe something happened back home. I took a step closer, then froze when I heard her laugh, a sharp, almost mocking sound that didn't sound like the woman I knew. And then I heard the name. Mark. She said it softly, intimately, the way she usually said mine. He must have asked her something because she replied, "Of course he has no idea. He thinks I'm in love with him." My heart stopped. I leaned closer to the hallway wall, barely breathing, and what I heard next shattered everything inside me. She said, "The moment I get the green card, I'll file for divorce. 2 years, that's it. Then I come back to you." There was a pause, and she lowered her voice even more. "I told you, he's perfect for this. He actually believes all of it." My hands were shaking so badly, I thought I'd drop the ring. I remember staring at the wall, at the paint texture, focusing on it because if I didn't, I was afraid I'd break down right there. She continued talking, mentioning dates, paperwork, reminders from someone else in their circle, details too specific to misunderstand. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan. A plan I was never meant to hear. When the call ended, I quietly backed out of the house and sat in my car for almost an hour, staring at the steering wheel, trying to comprehend what had just happened. I replayed every moment we shared, every kiss, every conversation, and suddenly they all felt contaminated, like someone had taken a knife to the timeline of our relationship and sliced it open. A part of me wanted to confront her instantly, to storm inside and demand the truth. But another part, colder, clearer, told me to stop. If she was willing to deceive me this deeply, if she had an actual partner helping her, then whatever this was, it was bigger than just heartbreak. It was a crime. And if I confronted her now, she'd just hide the evidence, destroy everything, and walk away clean. I sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, forcing myself to breathe. I had loved her. I had planned a future with her. And in that moment, I realized she had planned a future too, just not with me. Not really. I put the ring back into the glove compartment, closed my eyes, and made a decision that would change everything that followed. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I didn't sleep the night after hearing that phone call. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every laugh she shared with Mark, every detail that exposed how deeply I had been deceived. By sunrise, I knew I couldn't handle this alone. I called my cousin Daniel, someone I trusted more than anyone, someone who happened to work for ICE. When he picked up, I didn't even know how to begin, so I just told him everything from start to finish, my voice shaking the whole time. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was a long silence on the line, the kind that made my stomach twist. Then he said, "Ethan, this isn't just a breakup. If what you're saying is true, this is fraud, and not the small kind." I felt something cold settle into my chest. Daniel asked me if I was sure about what I heard. I told him every detail. The other man's name. The timeline she planned. The fact that she intended to leave me the moment the system allowed her. He sighed and said, "If she's part of a larger group doing this, we need evidence, real evidence, and you'll have to help us get it." My throat tightened at the thought of spending another second pretending to love someone who had no problem using me. But if I didn't do it, she'd walk free and find someone else to trap. I said yes. Daniel met me the next evening and explained exactly what I needed to do. Recordings, screenshots, copies of documents she left lying around, patterns of communication, names she mentioned, anything that would show intent and collaboration. It felt surreal listening to instructions on how to investigate the woman I had once imagined marrying. For the next 8 months, I lived a double life. During the day, I acted like the same affectionate, committed boyfriend she believed I still was. At night, I cataloged every piece of information she accidentally exposed. I saved photos of messages she forgot to delete. I recorded conversations where she hinted about timelines and future plans that didn't involve me. I kept track of every suspicious call she made when she thought I was asleep. Daniel showed me how to secure everything legally so it would hold up in court. I learned how to hide recording apps, how to preserve metadata, how to avoid tipping her off. It was draining, emotionally and mentally. There were nights I wanted to break down and tell her I knew. There were moments when she hugged me, smiled at me, or kissed me, and I had to fight the urge to push her away in disgust. But the more evidence I gathered, the more I realized she wasn't just acting on her own. There were names, people she checked in with, people she updated, people who gave her instructions. Once I heard her say, "He's still clueless. Everything is on schedule." That sentence alone fueled me for weeks. I wasn't clueless anymore. I wasn't helpless. I was building a case piece by piece, brick by brick, until the truth became undeniable. And the entire time, she kept acting like the perfect fiancé, planning our wedding, choosing decorations, talking about honeymoons. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her. But the truth was there, every night, every recording, every lie she thought she'd hidden from me. By the time the 8th month arrived, Daniel told me we had enough. More than enough. The only thing left was to let her walk toward the trap she had built for herself. The morning of the wedding felt like stepping into a parallel universe, one where everything looked perfect on the surface, while I knew a storm was building beneath it. Lena woke up excited, humming while she got ready, kissing my cheek, talking about how this was the happiest day of her life. If she noticed how quiet I was, she didn't mention it. Maybe she thought I was emotional. Maybe she thought she had already won. I watched her curl her hair, adjust her dress, take photos to send to people she claimed were friends back home, even though I knew exactly who she was updating. Every smile she gave me felt like a knife turning deeper. But I kept my face steady. I had to. Everything had been coordinated with Daniel and the ICE team. They would arrive at a precise moment, after all legal steps were documented, after Lena had officially demonstrated her intent, after she believed everything was going exactly according to plan. We needed her to feel safe. We needed her to sign the papers willingly. We needed her guard completely down. The ceremony was held in a small church decorated with soft lights and white flowers, the kind of setting Lena always said she wanted. Guests filled the seats, chatting, laughing, unaware they were about to witness something unforgettable. I stood at the altar, my hands cold, my heartbeat steady only because I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my mind. When Lena walked down the aisle, everyone gasped at how beautiful she looked. But all I saw was the mask, the performance she had perfected over months. She reached me, took my hands, and smiled like she loved me. It was almost impressive how well she played the part. The pastor began speaking, and everything felt like slow motion. I heard the doors open behind us. A faint shift in the atmosphere rippled through the room as several ICE officers stepped inside, dressed formally but unmistakably authoritative. A murmur spread through the guests. Lena stiffened but kept smiling, probably assuming it had nothing to do with her. Then the lead officer approached quietly, nodded at me and whispered, "Proceed." I turned back to the pastor, who continued the ceremony despite the shift in the room. This was all part of the plan. Everything needed to be recorded. Every word mattered. When it came time to sign the marriage license, Lena hesitated for the briefest second. Her hand trembled, though she tried to hide it. I watched her eyes dart toward the officers, then back at the paper. She forced a smile and signed her name. The pen had barely left the page when the lead officer stepped forward. "Lena Moraz, we need to speak with you regarding an ongoing federal investigation." Her face went white instantly, as if someone had drained all the blood from her body. She looked at me, confused, panicked, then furious. She whispered, "What did you do?" Before I could answer, the officers guided her away from the altar, separating her from the guests who were now in complete shock. Some gasped. Some whispered. Some backed away like they were witnessing a crime scene. Lena's voice cracked as she tried to maintain her innocence, insisting there must be some misunderstanding. But her eyes told the truth. She knew exactly what this was about. Daniel stood near the door, arms crossed, watching her with the expression of someone who had seen this play out many times before. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt empty. The ceremony ended in stunned silence, the decorations suddenly looking cheap and out of place, as if the room itself realized what the event had truly been, a stage for a final act she never saw coming. As Lena was escorted out, she screamed my name, not out of love, but out of rage and desperation. It echoed in the church long after she disappeared through the doors. That was the moment I knew the illusion had finally shattered. And the real consequences were only just beginning. In the days after the wedding, everything felt strangely quiet, like the calm after an explosion when your ears haven't stopped ringing yet. I woke up the next morning half expecting Lena to be beside me, brushing her hair or scrolling through her phone, but the house was empty in a way that felt heavier than silence. Then the messages started. First from her. Long, emotional paragraphs claiming she loved me, that she didn't understand what happened, that someone must have misled the officers. An hour later, the tone shifted. She blamed me. She said I sabotaged her out of jealousy, that I had trapped her, that I was the one who should be investigated. By evening, she was threatening to destroy my life once she got out. Her manipulation didn't surprise me, but the speed at which she switched masks did. ICE kept me updated, but they couldn't shield me from everything that followed. Lena's friends flooded my social media with insults, calling me a monster, a liar, a controlling narcissist who had ruined an innocent woman's life. They posted photos of me, screenshots taken out of context, fake stories designed to spark outrage. People I'd never met commented on posts claiming I was abusive, that I had emotionally tortured her, that I was trying to deport her because I wanted power over her. It was like watching a wildfire spread across dry grass. I tried deleting my accounts, but they found new ways to reach me. Emails, text messages, even handwritten notes shoved under my door. Some told me to kill myself. Others warned me I'd pay for what I did. One night, someone threw eggs at my house and keyed my car so deeply the paint peeled back like paper. The police made reports, but there wasn't much they could do until someone was actually caught. Meanwhile, Lena was fighting aggressively from inside custody. She filed for alimony despite the fraud charges, insisting she was my legal spouse and deserved financial support. Her lawyer argued she was the real victim, that I emotionally manipulated her, that I set her up, that the entire wedding had been a trap orchestrated by ICE. She even tried to file a restraining order against me from jail. It didn't go through, but the audacity of it stunned everyone involved. Then came the online fundraising campaigns. Her family created a tear-filled GoFundMe titled, "Help Our Daughter Escape an Abusive Marriage," claiming she was being wrongfully detained, that she was scared for her life, that I was a dangerous man. For a few days, donations poured in from strangers who believed the dramatized story. Then the platform shut it down after ICE submitted documentation proving the fundraiser was fraudulent. The page disappeared as if it had never existed, but the damage was already done. People had chosen their side based on emotion, not truth. The only unexpected twist came from Mark, the man she claimed she would return to once her green card was secured. He flipped fast. Within weeks, he provided ICE with messages, photos, and voice notes Lena had sent him, all describing the plan in detail. Maybe he didn't want to go down with her. Maybe he never cared as much as she thought. Maybe he was just trying to save himself. Whatever the reason, his betrayal crushed whatever hope she had left of spinning the narrative. But despite everything, her arrest, her exposed lies, the collapsing web of manipulation, I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt exhausted. The woman I had loved had turned my life into a battlefield, and the smoke hadn't even begun to clear. And even though she was behind bars, the fallout was far from over. When the court proceedings finally began, I felt like I was stepping into a world where truth moved slowly and lies moved fast. Lena entered the courtroom in a beige detention jumpsuit, but she carried herself like she was the one who had been wronged. Her chin lifted, eyes cold, expression carefully crafted into a mixture of fear and righteous indignation. The moment she saw me, her face twisted into a glare that made my stomach tighten. I sat down, bracing myself for whatever would come next. I didn't have to wait long. She insisted on representing herself, claiming no lawyer could tell her story as well as she could. It was the first sign of how unhinged things were about to get. She began by calling the officers liars, accusing them of conspiracy, insisting she was trapped in a government-designed ambush. She claimed I had emotionally abused her for months and forced her into the wedding. She said I had collaborated with ICE because I hated her culture, her independence, and her success. She painted me as a jealous, unstable man who couldn't handle rejection. At one point, she pointed at me and said, "He wanted complete control over me. He couldn't stand that I had friends. He tracked my phone, he monitored my messages, he isolated me from everyone." None of it was true. But she delivered it with trembling hands and a wavering voice, the performance of someone who had practiced her lines in the mirror. Her family cried loudly in the gallery, gasping at every accusation. Her supporters online launched new waves of posts, accusing me of everything from human trafficking to psychological torture. But the prosecution remained steady. Piece by piece, they revealed the evidence. Recordings of Lena openly discussing her plan. Messages she sent to Mark describing the timeline. Voice notes where she laughed about how easy it was to manipulate me. Documents showing coordination with other individuals under investigation for marriage fraud. Screenshots of conversations where she bragged about how American men were simple to trick. And worst of all for her, Mark's testimony. He sat on the stand looking uncomfortable, but his words were clear. He explained how long they had been together. He explained how they crafted the plan. He explained that Lena promised him they'd be together once she got her citizenship. Each revelation struck her like a blow she couldn't dodge. Her confidence began to crack. Her voice rose, then shook, then splintered into frantic outbursts. She accused the judge of bias. She called the prosecutors corrupt. She even claimed Mark had been forced to testify. By the third day, the judge had to warn her twice for contempt. It was like watching a mask peel away in real time. The jury didn't take long. The evidence was overwhelming. Her intent was undeniable. Her lies were transparent. When the verdict was read, guilty on multiple counts of marriage fraud, conspiracy, and falsifying federal documents, Lena froze. For the first time, she looked truly afraid. The sentencing came shortly after. 3 years in federal prison. Immediate removal from the United States upon release. Permanent ban from re-entering the country. No appeals. No loopholes. No more performances. As the guards led her away, she turned back toward me, her expression shifting from shock to hatred. She mouthed something I couldn't fully hear, but I didn't need to. I knew it was sorry. I walked out of the courtroom not feeling triumphant, not relieved, just drained. The legal battle was over, but the emotional war had carved scars I didn't yet understand. And somewhere, deep down, I knew the aftermath would follow me long after the judge's gavel had fallen. In the weeks after the trial, I expected life to slowly return to normal, but instead it felt like I was walking through the wreckage of a storm that only I could see. The world around me continued as usual, people going to work, cars passing on the street, neighbors mowing their lawns, but inside my own life, nothing felt steady anymore. The weight of everything that had happened pressed down on me in ways I didn't anticipate. I thought that once Lena was convicted, once the truth was out, the tension would lift. But instead, a new wave of chaos began. Anonymous messages still found their way into my inbox, despite me changing numbers and deleting old accounts. Some were threats. Some were long rants calling me a traitor, a monster, a heartless man who ruined a woman's future. Others tried to guilt-trip me, saying I had destroyed a poor immigrant's only chance at life. Sometimes they pretended to be reporters, trying to bait me into giving statements. Sometimes they pretended to be supportive, only to twist the conversation minutes later. I learned to stop responding. I learned to ignore unknown numbers. But the psychological toll didn't fade. One night, someone smashed a bottle against my driveway. Another time, I found a dead animal left near my mailbox. No one was ever caught, and the police could only file reports and advise caution. I installed cameras around my house, upgraded the locks, changed my routines. It felt like living in a constant state of alert, as if danger could slip through any crack I ignored. My sleep deteriorated. Every creak in the house made my pulse spike. Every unfamiliar car parked on my street kept me staring through the window until it left. I told myself I was overreacting, but my body didn't believe it. Friends tried to help, but most didn't fully understand the extent of what had happened. Some told me to move on, as if flipping a mental switch could erase months of fear and deception. Eventually, Daniel pulled me aside and said, "You need to talk to someone, not family, not friends, someone trained for this." He was right. I started going to therapy, something I never imagined myself doing. At first, I barely spoke. I sat on the couch, staring at the floor, struggling to put feelings into words. But session by session, I started unraveling the knots inside me. The therapist helped me understand what I had been through wasn't just heartbreak. It was betrayal trauma. It was prolonged stress. It was exposure to manipulation so deep that my mind had been conditioned to doubt everything, even my own instincts. Healing wasn't linear. Some weeks I felt stronger, almost normal. Other weeks I found myself reliving old memories, wondering how I hadn't noticed the lies sooner. But slowly, I learned to separate her actions from my identity. I learned that being deceived didn't make me weak. It made me human. What surprised me most was how many people reached out privately to say my case had helped expose similar scams. ICE uncovered a larger network tied to Lena's group, and several arrests followed. Knowing that my decision had prevented others from being exploited brought a strange kind of closure. Not happiness, not satisfaction, just resolution. Today, I'm still rebuilding. My confidence, my sense of peace, my trust in myself and others. but I'm no longer drowning. I'm learning to breathe again. And though the scars remain, they remind me of something important. That survival is still victory, even when the battle feels invisible. In the end, life didn't return to what it was before, but it settled into something steadier, something I could finally call my own. The shadows of the past no longer controlled every step I took, even though they still followed quietly behind me. I learned to accept them as part of my story, rather than enemies I needed to outrun. There were mornings when I woke up feeling lighter, realizing I had gone an entire day without thinking about the case. There were evenings when laughter felt natural again, not forced or fragile. I started reconnecting with people, rebuilding trust one small moment at a time. The world became a little bigger, a little brighter, no longer defined by fear or betrayal. What happened to me changed me, but it didn't destroy me. It forced me to confront who I was, what I valued, and what I refused to tolerate ever again. And somewhere in that difficult process, I found a version of myself that felt stronger, clearer, and more grounded than before. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm moving toward it with open eyes and a steady heartbeat. And for the first time in a long time, that feels enough.